Hey readers, it is Leslie with the She Reads Romance Books podcast. I can't believe 2025 is coming to a close, which means I am going to close out the year with my list of the best romance books of 2025. And when I say the best, I am talking about the few books that earned my elusive 5-star rating because they are the complete package that I'm always looking for in every romance book that I pick up. They have the most amazing writing, a compelling storyline, incredible characters that I think about long after finishing the book, and oftentimes that special something that just really grabs hold of my heart. It's not an easy task, but this year, 20 books made my list of the best romance books of 2025. And I have to say that 2025 was my biggest year of reading. I read close to 200 books, the most I think I've ever read in a single year. And so that's like 10%, right? That made my best of list. So that's not too shabby. And while many of the authors of these best romance books of 2025 have been on my best of lists in the past, 9 authors are new to my best of list, which I think is really, really cool as well. Because I love reading new releases from authors that I've loved and enjoyed reading in years past. But I always love to find those new authors that are, can become my new latest obsession, if you will. So it's not just the same old on this list as you might think. Now, before I jump into my list, I want to remind you of a few things. Every year, I also love to give a special shout out to my favorite book boyfriends of the year because I love collecting my book boyfriends. So if you missed my last podcast episode, circle back because I talked a lot about the heroes who captured my heart this year and why, so you don't want to miss it. You can also check out my past best romance books of the year posts and previous podcast episodes on shereadsromancebooks.com. I'll be sure to share the links to where you can find those lists, as well as my previous book boyfriend list of the year in the show notes. And you can also check out my entire 2025 reading list on She Reads Romance Books, where I share my star ratings for all of the almost 200 books that I read this year, with links to my reviews if I reviewed them, because there are many. I also love to compile a list of the New York Times bestsellers for the year in romance for combined ebook and paperback, so you can check out that list as well on shereadsromancebooks.com. As for what's to come in 2026, you can get ready for more book lists, many of which I am going to be sharing in my newsletter on Substack. So if you've not signed up yet to be on my email list, now is the time, because you are not going to want to miss a single book list there. Go to shereadsromancebooks.com/join so you can sign up. I've already published my list of my most anticipated new romance books of 2026 and my list of most anticipated new romantasy books that are going to drop in 2026. So you can be sure to take a look at those to get ready for the new year. I am also continuing the She Reads Romance book reading challenge in 2026. This is my 7th year, you guys. I cannot believe it. And so every year, the challenge is to read one romance book a month. And this year, we are going to be diving into the top romance book tropes. So books by trope, you're going to have a lot of leeway, and it's going to be so much fun. Again, if you sign up for my newsletter, I will be sure to send you out reminders every month of the new challenge that we'll have, as well as give you some of my recommendations for selections. And when you sign up on Substack, you'll be able to download my free printable that outlines the entire romance book reading challenge for the year. And lastly, the 2026 year of the She Reads Romance Books Book Club. is going to just kick off with a bang. I have already announced that our January 2026 book of the month is In Your Dreams by Sarah Adams. You are going to hear more about this book in a minute because it absolutely made my list of best romance books of 2025. It's sneaking in because it releases on December 30th. But because I loved it so much, I'm super excited that we're going to be reading it in book club in January and welcoming Sarah Adams to the club for our author Q&A on Zoom. Our author Q&As, I just have to say, last year and the year prior, my gosh, this year and last year, were freaking incredible. I am just so honored that these authors take time out to talk with us on Zoom. They're so candid and so fun and so real, right? Such more intimate than, meeting them for 2 minutes on a book tour. So I am so excited to chat with Sarah and all of the authors who are going to be joining us into 2026. If you're not yet a member, you can consider joining at shereadsromancebooks.com/book club. Okay, now it is impossible to say which of these romance books is my ultimate favorite. So I think I'm going to go into somewhat chronological order by release date, starting with the book that released first in January of 2025, etc. I think I did it pretty well in terms of order. So yeah, there's no particular order. I just love all these books that made my list of best romance books of 2025. And I think because I have so many, I'm not going to read what they're about. You've probably heard of them either from my past episodes on the podcast, but I'll kind of give a quick and dirty and then share why they made my list. But first up, the first romance book to land on my list of the best romance books of 2025 was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. So gotta love romantasy. Gotta have loved her prior 2 books in the Empyrean series to dive into Onyx Storm. And I say normally book 3 in like a 5-book fantasy series can kind of be a dud, right? Sometimes it's just way too much filler or it's not as captivating. But I was blown away by this book. Like, it was not that at all. It was just super wonderful. And I mean, one of my favorites in the series, honestly. And of course, why I love the book is because I love Xaden, right? I mean, couldn't get enough of him in Fourth Wing, definitely an Iron Flame. And there's only more to love of him in Onyx Storm, which is why I talked about him in last episode as one of my favorite book boyfriends. He is like the epitome of a tortured hero who has even more demons to wrestle in this book. And yet his devotion to Violet is so steadfast, right? But I'm just in awe of Rebecca's fantasy writing skills. I mean, she's amazing in a contemporary writer, but she has created such a unique world and setting for this series that honestly just keeps getting better and better. And I think even though this is book 3, I was instantly hooked and glued to the page throughout the entire book. And I kind of had to read it slower than I normally read because I just wanted to soak everything in, understand where they were traveling, and remember old and new names. So I think this book made my best of list because it carried this fantasy series along with this overarching storyline, as well as the love story between Violet and Xaden. And I loved how we got to know more about Adarna and her kind. And Riddick, I mean, gosh, his comedic relief throughout the story was fantastic. And this cliffhanger was super, super good. So Onyx Storm, definitely one of the best romance books of 2025. Now, the next book on my list of best romance books of 2025 was our February 2025 book of the month for the She Reads Romance Books book club, and that is Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. This is about a married couple, which you don't see too much, and not really about how, it doesn't really go back in time too much. It's not their, prequel, if you will, but it's really learning about Sarah and Caleb at this point in time in their marriage. I had totally fallen in love with them after reading Out on a Limb, Hannah's amazing hit of 2023. But getting up close and personal with Sarah and Caleb for their own story was really such a gift this year. I think, as I said, it's a rarity, right, to get a romance book that focuses on a married couple, because you think married couples already have their happily ever after, right? But those of us, I think, who are married know that marriages have their ups and downs, right? Even for those who find their soulmate in 11th grade, like these two did. So I love that Hannah gave us a married couple, but with a storyline that wasn't really tried and done before, like focusing on fertility issues or infidelity, but focus simply on the fact that these characters were at a bit of a crossroads, right, in their relationship. And Hannah normalizes that even people who love each other to pieces have their ups and downs and maybe need some outside assistance to get them through that tough time. Now, Sarah realized that couples therapy might not have been the best way to go for them, but instead, a week out in the woods was, I guess, going to do the trick. So this was just a wonderful book. It was super special to chat with Hannah about the writing, the characters, her inspiration for it in book club. So definitely one of my favorites of 2025. Next on my list of best romance books of 2025 is Dreamgirl Drama by Tessa Bailey, which was our March 2025 book of the month for the She Reads Romance Books book club. I mean, we were just knocking it out of the park this year so far with book selections. This was a forbidden romance between a hockey player and the woman he fell for after just one look, but who he soon learns is supposed to be his future stepsister. So obviously Dreamgirl Drama has the best meet cute because you could immediately sense, like both of them, Sig and Chloe's instant and forever attraction to each other. And that's sort of what Tessa Bailey does, right? She hooks you right into her stories, making you feel instantly invested in her characters, sort of flaws and all. And the best part of this book, besides Sig and his thoughtfulness, was their intense chemistry. I loved how they kind of fought against it every time they were together, which was honestly daily since they couldn't bear to be away from each other, even for a day. So that's like true love, right? And Tessa Bailey, I mean, I just love this woman. She is a freaking New York Times bestselling author. And so I was slightly intimidated by having her join book club, but our chat was so much fun. I mean, I just could hang out with her forever. I think she was just so down to earth, super cool, super fun, just so real, right? And I loved hearing what she was going to have for us up next with her work. So it was just super special. Loved this book. Love her. It was phenomenal. Okay, moving on to my next book on my best romance books of 2025 list is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. Now, this is a, how do I describe it? A single mom who sort of falls for the radio talk show host who no longer believes in love. This book was a balm to my soul when I needed it most. I got an advanced reader copy in November, and so I read this in November of last year, and it honestly made me believe in love and goodness again. The best part of this book is the hopefulness that I think underlines every page, the hopefulness that a once-in-a-lifetime love is out there and available to everyone, no matter what life has presented to you in the past. Both Lucy and Aiden deserved a love so profound that it would take their and honestly my breath away. And it did, given the amazing slow burn storyline that Becca crafted into this romance. Lucy is the type of strong heroine I love in romance books. She was so honest with herself and her feelings, and she was brave to put herself out there again. And Aiden, I mean, the man keeps a list of the things that she likes in his glove compartment, you guys. I mean, he should be on my list of best book boyfriends of the year. I don't know why I left him off because he was incredible. I am a sucker for great romance movies, and Sleepless in Seattle is such a classic. I loved how that movie was her inspiration for this story as the radio station hook that brought Aiden and Lucy together. It was super fun, and especially to see that unfold on the page. So much to love about this book. I could go on and on. Just read my book review on shereadsromancebooks.com. Hands down, one of the best of 2025 for sure. This next book I did mention in the last episode because it has one of my favorite book boyfriends, and that is Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. This is kind of a forced proximity romance where Lenny becomes a nanny to Miles's niece, and Miles wants to get closer to his sister and his niece, but he meets Lenny in the process and comes to understand the grief that has just swallowed her whole and helps her through it. This was my first Cara Bastone book, and it will not be my last because she had me in awe of every single word of this book. As someone who has not had to deal with grief like the likes of Lenny and Miles in the story, I found this book to be so beautiful in its realistic portrayal that had me like bawling my eyes out at times and really gripped my heart from beginning to end. Cara did an amazing job portraying what it might feel like to lose someone. I think actually she did lose somebody in her life, and so maybe she pulled some of that in. I'm not really sure. But it's got to be really hard to like lose someone and then try and pick your life up again and try and move on. But she showed how you can do this in her writing while also writing the most incredible slow burn between Lenny and Miles as she starts to heal. This is definitely one of those books that stays with you long after finishing it. One of the best of 2025 for sure. Please read it if you haven't. It was just so good. Next on my list is a book that was our April 2025 book of the month for the She Reads Romance Books book club, and that was Story of My Life by Lucy Score. Oh my gosh, so much fun. Small town romance, grumpy sunshine, where a romance novelist who has a bit of writer's block moves to this small town, buying this house sight unseen that totally needs some work and falling for the contractor in the process. If you were like me and you fell hard for Lucy's Knock 'em Out series, then you were itching for another small town romance series that brings together everything that I love about Lucy's work, right? Fantastic writing, hilarious small town shenanigans, a swoon-worthy grump, an adorable heroine, and that is Story of My Life. I mean, the book has it all. It has a quirky, adorable heroine, a grumpy hero who falls first, small town shenanigans with hilarious side characters, animals who cause havoc, hot brothers that I now need their stories, so many laugh out loud moments with hilarious texting and banter, which I just ate up every single time. I'm really not sure what more you could ask for, right? Other than having a heroine who is a romance author in need of inspiration, who ends up living out her own romance book worthy story. It was so good. And honestly, nobody does Grumpy Sunshine better than Lucy Score. She just does it perfectly again in this one. Such a fun read and a blast chatting with her in book club. She was hilarious, and her cat joined our chat. It was so much fun. So I loved it. Story of My Life, definitely one of the best romance books of 2025. Okay, the next book I also mentioned last episode because the hero is one of my favorite book boyfriends, and he is from the book Wild Side by Elsie Silver. This is about the professional wrestler who ends up proposing a marriage of convenience to the aunt of the boy that he is actually awarded guardianship of. just so that they can stay together. And it's just so wonderful. I devoured Wild Side after reading Wild Eyes, the previous book in the series, and I love them both. Oh my gosh, so, so much. They're the best in the Rose Hill series, in my opinion. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I'd fall for a romance or a hero who was a WWE wrestler. Just trying to picture Reese in that outfit and performing in the ring, it was enough to make me pick up this book, and I just loved it so much. Not only for the unique hook, but because it sort of turned into this wonderful enemies to lovers, marriage of convenience romance with a feisty heroine and a really sweet and sexy hero. Tabby, oh my gosh, she was a woman after my own heart, wanting what was best for her nephew, while also really mourning the loss of her sister. I loved how her heart thawed toward Reese and how he stood up for her time and time again. It was wonderful. Definitely one of Elsie's best for sure, and hands down one of the best of the year. Okay, keep going here. Next up on my list of best romance books of 2025 was our June 2025 book of the month for the She Reads Romance Books book club, and that is If Tomorrow Never Comes by Allison Ashley. This is another forbidden romance where Elliot ends up needing a stem cell transplant to treat her leukemia. And she decides to go out one night before her transplant because she doesn't know how it's going to go. And she ends up meeting someone, having the best night of her life, but then, has her transplant and has to really focus on, getting herself living, and hoping that she stays healthy, but then runs into him again later, only to find out he's the boyfriend of her stem cell donor. You guys, and that's not a spoiler because it's on the book summary, but how could you not pick that up after reading the summary? And this was my first book by Allison Ashley, and I was just blown away because she wrote the most amazing meet cute and their night together for these two that just had you hoping their happily ever after would come to pass. It gave me the chills just knowing how right these two were for each other. Their banter was spot on. Their first kiss was so swoony. But of course it wasn't easy for them, and my heart went through the ringer right along with them, knowing that Elliot was going to embark on this long process to become cancer free. And then what was going to happen after. It's just the perfect love story that sweeps you up in it without unnecessary drama or angst that I think other authors might have added to it, given the apparent, love triangle. But Ashley kept this a really wonderful and heartfelt love story. It was fabulous. And it was really cool to hear about her career working with cancer patients when she joined us in book club. So the woman knows what she's talking about, right? Definitely one of the best of 2025. I hope you pick it up and read it if you haven't already. Okay, this next book is one of those gems I still think about. I mentioned it in last episode. I did not care that it was a debut novel because once I read the book blurb, I was like, please give me a copy because I want to read it, and thank you for sending it. And that is Any Trope But You by Victoria Levine. This book, it's so wonderful. It's about a romance book author who secretly writes happily never afters for all of her characters. And when that gets leaked out, her fan base totally turns on her. And so she ends up going to the middle of nowhere, Alaska, to write a murder mystery, but ends up falling for the hot cancer researcher who she meets there in the process. But this book, I was just blown away by Victoria's amazing writing that gives you all of the popular romance book tropes that us romance fanatics just devour. And I love that it was about a popular romance author, who lost her faith in love and how that sort of imploded for her. But Forrest and Margot are just really great characters. who has this really funny meet cute and who clearly are meant for one another. I love their commonality as caretakers to their family members and how that connection really helped them to understand and truly see each other. As a romance book lover, I adored how Victoria paid homage to so many romance book tropes in the story without force feeding them, right? Or making the story too hokey. You've got, enemies to lovers, to forced proximity, to Margot mocking the only one bed tent trope, and so much more. It was just such a fun nod to everything that I love about this genre. And I cannot wait to read what Victoria has next. I loved it. Check it out. Definitely one of the best romance books of 2025. Okay, are we halfway there yet? I don't really know. I feel like I have a lot more to talk about because there were so many to love this year. The next one being Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. This is about this, fierce heroine who is unapologetically child-free. She meets this tech mogul who just pursues her. She's incredible, trying to support Black women entrepreneurs, but also now dealing with her mother who has Alzheimer's. So having already dived into Kennedy's Skyland series, there was no doubt that this book was probably going to make my best of list because her books are just so phenomenal. I love everything about Hendrix in this story. Her tenacity, her drive, her love and care of those around her, her commitment to causes, the self-awareness and self-esteem, and the standards that she has never wavered from when it came to a partner that she deserved. And in addition to her central love story, Kennedy weaves in topics, as I'd mentioned, of child-free women by choice, venture capital funds supporting Black women-owned businesses, and Alzheimer's. But most of all, I really loved that this book featured a mature, sexy, driven woman who was 40, right? And not 25. I honestly didn't want this story or this series to end, but the epilogue, gave the perfect wrap up to the series. I think it can absolutely be read as a standalone, but Kennedy Ryan she's just, in a class of her own when it comes to how much she portrays and includes in her books. I loved Can't Get Enough. One of the best of 2025, hands down. Okay, this book I mentioned also last episode because it features one of my favorite book boyfriends, and that is from the book It's a Love Story by Annabelle Moynihan. What's not to love about this? Jane Jackson, who was a child star, she's trying to make it and have her first project greenlit, but this cinematographer, Dan, keeps putting the brakes on it, and so she kind of makes this deal that she can get this singer on board, and she ends up having to travel to New York with Dan, staying with his family to be able to make her offer come to pass. That is really not the best summary at all for an amazing book, but here we go. I had the pleasure of chatting with Annabelle about It's a Love Story on the podcast and seeing her on tour, and man, our conversation was so wonderful. This woman, she's just the best, right? As an author, as a person, but this book became my obsession after reading it, and it's one of those that, you hope your review sort of conveys that, but I wrote in my review that you will devour this book if you love enemies to lovers tension that melts into the sweetest of love stories, loud, big families that sweep you into the fold, quiet heroes that see the real you, whispered truths in the dark between them, oh my gosh, and a sweet slow burn romance with all the feels. And I have to include this, The Notebook. If you love The Notebook as much as I do, there are so many discussions and talk about in The Notebook. which I just freaking loved about this story. So that is just a tip of the iceberg about why I love this story so much. It just showcases how wonderful an author Annabelle is. So hands down, one of the best of 2025. This next book was our September 2025 book of the month for the She Reads Romance Books book club. And again, totally, absolutely wowed by this book. And that is Every Step She Takes by Allison Cochran. This was her latest queer romance about 35-year-old Sadie, who her life is sort of small, and she ends up traveling to Portugal to hike on the Camino de Santiago in her sister's place, and on the flight over ends up confessing that she thinks she's a lesbian to her seatmate, only to see that seatmate on the same tour, which happens to be a queer tour. And it was just so, so lovely. This romance is an example of how an author does everything so right in the book. Allison sets the bar so high with her work because she writes such rich characters with great backstories, amazing side characters that you love so much, and often an emotional journey that sort of sweeps you up and never lets go. I loved following Sadie's journey along the Camino that is not only a beautiful description of the scenery around her in Portugal and Spain, but also this beautiful tale of self-discovery and growth for her and her trek mates. Cochran's tale of Sadie's coming out and coming into her own identity was so well crafted. I felt every one of Sadie's emotions that she was brave enough to share with her roommate Mal. I'm obsessed with the dating/bedroom coach trope. And this one was so fantastic since it was so easy to see Sadie and Mal's chemistry and their love for one another. Definitely one of my favorites of the year and one of Cochran's best. She was wonderful. She joined us in the club right before she was going on maternity leave. And I just couldn't get enough of saying how much I loved this book and how much she's inspired me to want to go hike the Camino myself. It's definitely on my bucket list now for sure. Okay, next book on my best romance books of 2025 list is Picture Perfect by Tessa Bailey. Yes, Tessa Bailey made my list twice this year because she's so good. I love her Big Shots romance book series. This is about the rookie hockey player Robbie Corrigan, how he meets Skylar, the Division I softball pitcher. And even though he falls first for her, he ends up helping her to make her brother's best friend jealous because that's her crush. But Robbie's already fallen for her and he's going to teach her some things in the bedroom. And it was just fabulous all the way around for a fake relationship romance. Fake relationship romance, I think, are so much fun to read. It's one of my top 2 tropes of all time, I think, to read. Even better, as I said, when the reason for the fake relationship is to get another man's attention and to make him jealous. As I said, in addition to fake romance, this is also a really great he falls first romance, the best reformed playboy romance, and of course, the best bedroom coach romance. Plus, those scenes were really prime opportunities for Tessa's amazing skill at dirty talk to shine, and it really did. This book is just the perfect package of everything, and Robbie made my list of best book boyfriends for a reason. I mean, it's fantastic, and you are absolutely going to love it if you haven't already. Okay, this next book was another sort of surprise for me, but hands down worthy of being on my list of best romance books of 2025, and that is The Homemaker by Jewel E. Ann. I'm not even sure how to describe this without sort of giving some spoilers, but Alice, she is hired as this homemaker for this very rich family or couple in Minneapolis. She dresses like a 1950s housewife and does stuff. And when their daughter returns home for the summer, she's joined by her fiance, which is someone Alice has history with. So, oh my gosh, like, cue the like tension, right? But I was just so blown away and enthralled by this book. There was no way I was not going to put it on this list. Now, Julie Ann, she seriously creates the most intriguing storylines, some really amazing, captivating characters, and the most emotional romance books. And boy, does she do it again with The Homemaker. I just kept telling my friends, I'm like, I have so many freaking feelings about this book. Like all around, my heart has never ached so much for a heroine, not only for the reason you come to find out of why she disappeared from Murphy, but also that she reunites with him while he's engaged to another, and you're just like, oh my gosh. And then you have this job as a homemaker, which was just so fascinating. And I had Jewel on the podcast, so you should definitely check out that episode where we talk about this book and how she came up with the idea that one reader gave her based on the Taylor Swift song. I mean, this book had me in a chokehold, I tell you. And it's so wonderful to find an author who writes such unique romances that make you feel all the feels and question so many different things and swoon and cry, like all in one sitting. So I just adore Jewel's writing, and this one was superb. One of the best of the year. Let's see. And I love that book and this one are from two indie published authors. My next book on my best romance books of 2025 list was Stand Your Ground by Candy Steiner. Oh my gosh. So this is in her hockey series. And this is where Carter, the hockey player, he's a virgin, right? And he has fallen in love with this woman who's close to the team, and he wants her to teach him everything. That's all you need to know. It's so good. But this book, man, it snuck up on me and became such a surprise. Not because Candy's work isn't amazing. I mean, she is a phenomenal writer, and I love her books and the previous books in the series. But there was just something so special and raw about this story that I wasn't anticipating, and that I just found to be so incredible. It's another bedroom coach romance, and I told you I love those. But where the woman is teaching the man, and boy, does he learn his lessons like a good boy. This was spicy. It was swoony. Just because I loved how these two fit together. It's just such a special book. I think I'm going to have to reread it again now after thinking about it. It was wonderful. Highly, highly recommend it. Stand Your Ground, one of the best romance books of 2025. Okay, next on my list of best romance books of 2025 is Willing Prey by Ali Oleander. Oh my gosh, you guys, love this. This is about a teacher, Claire, who needs to make some money over the summer, right? And so she takes up the offer of her ex-husband's colleague to be his sexual prey for the summer. Basically, like at his beck and call whenever he's like ready to hunt her down. This was one of those books that I instantly had to read after reading the summary. I'd never read a book before by Ali, and I think this might even be her debut too. I'm not really sure, but I was so wowed, you guys. I enjoy books that explore kink, and you can even listen to my podcast episode on romance books with various kink in them. But I had never read a book with fully devoted on primal play. And it sounds kind of strange to describe it this way, but it was so spicy and yet so fun. Right from the start, Ali kicked off a great story with fantastic writing, intriguing characters, and interesting kink to explore, and she really moved it along expertly. What struck me most is that this could have been about one really alpha male and this sort of innocent or even virgin heroine who needed money, so she volunteers to be his prey. But it wasn't that, which made it so much more and better, in my opinion. Instead, Allie made Claire this mature, strong heroine who is the one who came into this arrangement knowing, experiencing, and loving this kink. And Shane was a total alpha on the hunts, but he was kind of a big cinnamon roll too underneath. And I just love that about him. Of course, the hunts themselves were super hot and steamy and so much fun to read. But I just loved reading it. It was so much fun to read. Like, that's pretty much it, hands down. I loved it. Definitely one of my favorites of 2025. Okay, a couple more. Next up was our November 2025 book of the month for the She Reads Romance Books book club, and that was Grace and Henry's Holiday Movie Marathon by Matthew Norman. I love this book where Grace and Henry have both lost their spouses, and their moms sort of scheme to get them to meet each other, and they end up becoming friends from Thanksgiving to the Christmas holiday while getting together and watching various holiday movies and sort of working through their grief together. I mean, I had never read a Matthew Norman book before this one, but the summary was just too good to pass up, and I was so glad I read it because he blew me away with his amazing writing, the fun banter, the emotional range of grief expressed in the pages, and the sweeping love story that gripped me from the very first chapter. Matthew is an incredible writer. I've taken a dive into his previous books since because I just wanted to read more, and I loved how he incorporated holiday movies, how he created such cute kids, the humor, the snark was fantastic. I even bawled my eyes out at one point. It's such a poignant, sweet, and swoony love story, and honestly, we could not stop raving to him about it in book club. He was such a good sport hearing us gush about this book, but it was fantastic. Definitely one I would highly recommend no matter what time of year it is. Read it. It was so, so good. Okay, next on my list of favorite romance books and the best romance books of 2025 is Branded by Saffron A. Kent. This book, oh my gosh, you guys, I was just eating it up. A college student, virgin, decides it's a great idea to write an inmate in prison and then to meet him in person. And oh my gosh, shenanigans unfold after that. This was another book that I had to read after reading the summary because I've been devouring cowboy romance books this year, but this one I felt like was going to bring such a steamy, darker, and unique spin to this category of romance that I did not know I needed in my life. This book is why I love steamy fiction because, again, why would a college student write a convict in prison and then agree to meet him in person? But she does, and then I was hooked on the resulting kidnapping and forced marriage and everything in between. I mean, I freaking ate everything up. The best part to me was how Saffron made Arson someone who was slightly dangerous, standoffish, and a bit unhinged, honestly, when in the next moment he would be so utterly romantic at the same time. I loved his dichotomy in the way that he would call her his wife and had a touch her and die complex. Yeah, it was super hot. And it also had this element of passing letters back and forth in the past and the present, which is something that I really love in romance too. So I cannot wait for more in this series. This book blew me away. So pick up Branded. You will not be disappointed. Okay, I think two more. Next up on my list of best romance books of 2025 is Brimstone by Callie Hart. This is the story of Sarah's Vane continuing from Quicksilver, and I'm not really sure how much I can say without, spoiling Quicksilver, but it's an amazing romantasy that has everything about it that makes me love romantasy books. It has a unique world filled with fae and vampires and monsters. It has a heroine who has powers she's just gained and learning to control. It has incredible side characters that make the story rich. And in Carrie and Swift's case, so freaking funny. God, I love that character. And of course, it has an alpha male who is all about cherishing and loving and protecting his mate. Kingfisher, one of my top book boyfriends of the year. The things that he would say to Saris and the devotion he had to her just made my heart freaking stop. Callie Hart, she is a phenomenal writer, and the duet narration of this audiobook is like out of this world. I will forever sing Anthony Palmini's praises for the voices and inflection that he uses in it. It is just incredible. Love it. It's a big one. I mean, this book is like 700 pages and the audiobook is super long, but so worth it. Okay, and my last book on my best romance books of 2025 list is In Your Dreams by Sarah Adams. This is an amazing frenemies to lovers romance where Madison is a chef who just completed culinary school in New York, but she wants to move home to her small hometown of Rome, Kentucky, where her brother's best friend James owns and runs a farm, and he offers her a job to be the chef to open up this new farm-to-table restaurant that he is going to start. So to say that Sarah closed out her epic Rome, Kentucky series with a stunner is an understatement. I don't understand how these books just keep getting better and better, but I'm not surprised because Sarah is so freaking talented. I loved how Madison had to overcome her feeling of being the failure in her family of siblings. I loved her passion for cooking and was so happy to see her reclaim that love while also not shying away from showing her feelings to James. But James totally made this book for me. I mean, I gushed about him in last episode because he is definitely one of my favorite book boyfriends of the year. He is someone who saw Madison, loved her from afar for so long, and then opened a freaking restaurant that he didn't even want for her. The man's incredible. Sarah wrote the best love story between him and Madison. It was such a great way to close out 2025 with an incredible 5-star book. That is now going to be our January 2026 book of the month for the She Reads Romance Books Book Club. I'm so excited. It's going to be great. And that is it. Oh my gosh. Thanks for hanging with me. That wrapped up my entire list of best romance books of 2025. What did you think? Have you read any of these? Or if you hadn't, are any of them now on your TBR list? I hope so, because all of them deserve a place on it because they were just fantastic. But now is the exciting part, right? We're starting a new year, and I cannot wait to see what books are going to land on my best romance books of 2026 list. And I'm going to share them with you, each and every one. So again, please be sure to join my newsletter. Go to shereadsromancebooks.com/join so you don't miss a review, don't miss a book list. 2025 was a great year of reading. 2026, I have no doubt, will be the same. And I hope you'll be along for the ride with me. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in to the She Reads Romance Books podcast. I hope you find a wonderful new romance book, whatever you may pick up, and happy reading, because life is better with a love story.